Hi guys, today we're going to go over some of the things that you can do on your calculator. And the very first thing we look at that you can do on your calculator is solving simultaneous equations. Okay, so this is an example of a simultaneous equations. As you know, simultaneous means at the same time. So that means the value of x in this first equation is the same as the value of x in this one. The value of y in this equation is the same as the value of y in the second equation. Okay, so what we're trying to do is find two values for x and y that satisfy both of these equations. And I'm sure you know how to solve these without a calculator, but using a calculator is a useful way of checking that what you have done is correct. So getting straight into it, on your calculator, if you have this Casio calculator, you go to mode, and then you go to number 5, equation. And then you can see there's a list of options for types of equations that you're trying to solve. Now, this is a linear equation with only two variables, x and y. So we pick our first option, option 1. Okay, so you'll come up with a matrix like this. And what you're going to do for A and B is you are going to enter the coefficients of x and y. So it's very important that if the question is not given to you in this form, where the variables are on the left and then the constant terms are on the right, you need to rewrite it so that it looks like this. So let's say, for example, the 4 was a -4 on this side. First thing you must do is take it to the other side. Make sure your x's are in line, your y's are in line, and the constant terms are on the other side. Then the rest is very easy. Just enter the values of the coefficients. So here the coefficient is 1, then equals. Then the second coefficient for y is also 1. So you press 1 equals. And then over here, we enter the constant term that's on the other side of the equal to sign, which is a 4 equals. Then we move on to our second equation. The coefficient of x is 2 equals the coefficient of y is -3. Okay, so the sign in front matters, so it's -3. And then the constant term is 9 equals, and that's it. Press equal to again, and it'll solve for x. X is 21/5, and y is -1/5. And there you have it. So you can always check by substituting x is 21/5 plus -1/5. That will give you 20/5, which is equal to 4. And substitute it in here as well. You'll see that the answer is 9. So this is a quick and easy way to check that your calculations are in fact correct. Okay, so here's another example of a pair of simultaneous equations that we want to solve using our calculator. Okay, so you'll notice this one is slightly different from the one that we did before because the x terms are not in line, the y terms are not in line, and we have y on the right-hand side instead of being on the left-hand side. So when you have equation written like this and you want to solve it on your calculator, the very first thing is to rewrite it so that the x and y terms are on the left and then the constant term is on the right. Okay, so doing that, what we will then get is this 2x minus y. So here my y becomes negative because it goes from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. The sign changes. The 5 is still on the left-hand side, so it's not going to change its sign. So what I want to do with the first equation is all the terms with x and y must be on the same side. That is the left-hand side. And on the right, I must have only the constant term. That is the term without the x and the y. And then this one here, it's just a matter of rearranging them so that the x term comes first. Notice that the sign does not change because it hasn't gone over to the other side. It's still on the same side. It's just standing in a different place. So I take this -4 and it swaps places with this y. And this y is positive, so it remains positive because it has not gone to the other side of the equal to sign. So again, we want to do this on our calculator. You need to go to equation mode. So you press mode here on your calculator, and then number 5 for equation. And then again, because our equations, our pair of simultaneous equations have only two variables, that's option 1, which has x and y. So I press 1, and now I enter the coefficients. Start with the first equation. The coefficient of x is 2. Then you press equal to the coefficient of y. Remember the sign. This is -1 equals, and then the constant term that's on the other side is 5. Then you press equals. Then the second term coefficient is -4. Then +1 or just 1. And the constant term is 1. Okay, and then you press equal to and it will solve. We get x is equal to -3 and y is equal to -11. Of course, you can always check by substituting your values into the equations and see that they do in fact satisfy. So we have 2 times -3 is -6. -6 minus -11 will give you +5. And here I have -4 times -3, that's +12. Positive 12 plus -11, that is equal to 1. So I'm sure that my solutions are correct. Okay, now we can also do this with simultaneous equations with 3 variables. Let's say, for example, we have x, y, and Z. The procedure is pretty much the same. Again, we go mode and equation, which is option 5. And now this time we look for the equation with 3 variables, x, y, and z. So that's option 2. And we get a similar matrix, and we're just going to enter the coefficients of x, y, and z, as well as the constant term. So again, just like the previous example, if the x's are not lined up, the y's are not lined up, and the z's are not lined up in the question, the way it is asked, the first thing you need to do is align them. So x terms first, y terms next, z terms next, and then all the other terms without x, y, and z on the right-hand side of your equations. And then you enter the coefficients. So coefficients, that just means the numbers in front of your variables. So you start with equation 1, we have 4. And you press equals, -2. Remember the sign must also go into the calculator, -2 equals, then 3 equals, and then the last term is what you have on the other side, which is a 1 equals. Then you do the same thing for equation 1. The coefficient of x is 1, then 3, then the sign is -4, and the last term is -7. Then equation 3, coefficient of x is 3, and then 1, then 2, and 5 equals. So check that everything is entered correctly. If you made a mistake, you can always use the arrows, go up and down to whatever point you want to correct, and then correct it. Then once you're sure everything's fine, you just press equals. The calculator will work it out. You see that x is equal to -1. And then y is equal to 2. And finally, z is equal to 3. Okay, then once you have all three of your variables, you can always, like I said, substitute them individually into each of the equations and check that they do in fact satisfy the equation that you're given. Okay, so that's basically it, how you can use your calculator in order to solve simultaneous equations.